The emergency siren screamed across the Galactic Medical Station as another transport ship docked with wounded soldiers from the Kepler 442b conflict. Dr. Zithara's forearms moved with practiced efficiency, her chitinous exoskeleton clicking against the medical equipment as she prepared for the incoming casualties. As chief medical officer of the station, she had seen countless species arrive broken and bleeding from humanity's latest war against the Vorthan Empire. The airlock hissed open, and the familiar sight of human medics rushing wounded soldiers on floating gurneys filled the corridor. What always amazed Zithara was how the humans continued to function under such extreme stress. Their primitive single-heart circulatory systems should have failed them long ago, yet here they were, still fighting wars across 3 star systems. "Incoming critical," shouted a human medic, his voice cutting through the chaos. Zithara recognized him immediately. Chief Petty Officer Marcus Chen, a SEAL medic whose reputation had spread throughout the medical station. The humans called their special forces SEALs, though Zithara had never understood why they named themselves after Earth's aquatic mammals. Chen was pushing a gurney carrying what appeared to be a young human female. Her uniform was torn and blood-soaked, with visible wounds across her arms and torso. What caught Zithara's attention wasn't the severity of the injuries, but the complete silence from the patient. Most species would be screaming, crying, or at least vocalizing their pain. This human lay perfectly still, her eyes open and alert but not making a single sound. "Bay 7 is open," Zithara called out, leading them into the treatment area. Her medical scanner immediately began analyzing the human's condition as they transferred her to the biobed. The readings were concerning. Multiple projectile wounds, severe blood loss, and what appeared to be energy burns from Vorthan plasma weapons. Yet the human's vital signs showed remarkable stability for someone so severely injured. "What's her background?" Zithara asked Chen as she began connecting monitoring devices. The human medical compatibility protocols had taken months to develop, but now they worked seamlessly with galactic medical equipment. "Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell, 23 years old, Marine Corps combat engineer," Chen replied, his hands moving swiftly to assist with the medical setup. She was caught in an ambush while clearing Vorthan mines from the forward operating base perimeter. Zithara's compound eyes studied the patient more closely. The human female, Mitchell, was conscious and aware, following their movements with sharp intelligence in her eyes. Despite obvious pain that should have rendered her unconscious, she remained completely silent. It was a phenomenon Zithara had observed in humans before, but never to this extreme. "I need to assess her pain levels," Zithara said, activating the neural interface scanner. "This might be uncomfortable." The scanner's probe touched Mitchell's temple, and immediately Zithara's antennae recoiled in shock. The neural readings were off the charts. This human was experiencing pain levels that would have killed most other species, yet she wasn't even grimacing. Her neural pathways showed active suppression techniques that Zithara had never seen before. "Impossible," she whispered in her native clicking language before switching back to standard galactic. "How is she maintaining consciousness with these pain levels?" Chen glanced at Mitchell, then back at Zithara. "Doc, you haven't seen anything yet. Mitchell's been awake and alert for the entire 6-hour transport flight. She's been giving tactical reports and coordinating with command the whole time." As if to prove his point, Mitchell's voice came out clear and steady despite her injuries. "Doctor, I need to know the status of my team. 4 Marines were in the minefield with me when the Vorthans hit us." Zithara stared at the human in amazement. Not only was she conscious and coherent, but she was prioritizing others over her own severe injuries. The galactic medical text described this as typically human behavior, but experiencing it firsthand was something entirely different. "Your team is being treated in adjacent bays," Zithara assured her. "Now I need you to focus on your own condition. Can you describe what you're feeling?" Mitchell's response was immediate and precise. "Multiple entry wounds, likely from Vorthan flechette rounds. Probable internal bleeding in the lower abdomen. Burns on my left arm and shoulder from their plasma rifles. Some vision distortion in my right eye, possibly from concussion." The accuracy of her self-diagnosis stunned Zithara. Most patients couldn't provide such detailed medical assessments while in shock and severe pain. She looked at Chen, whose expression suggested this level of performance was normal for his species. "Has she had medical training?" Zithara asked. "Basic combat medicine, same as all Marines," Chen replied. "But Mitchell's got something extra. She was selected for advanced individual training before deployment." Zithara began the delicate process of treating the wounds while maintaining the human's consciousness. Her surgical arms worked independently, cleaning and sealing the smaller injuries while her primary hands operated the trauma equipment. Throughout the procedure, Mitchell continued to provide real-time feedback on what she was experiencing, helping guide the treatment. "The plasma burns are deeper than they appear," Mitchell noted as Zithara worked on her arm. "I felt the energy penetrate through the dermal layer when I was hit. You might want to check for cellular damage below the visible burn area." Zithara quickly scanned deeper and found exactly what Mitchell had described. The human's ability to analyze her own injuries in real time was providing better diagnostic information than some of the station's advanced equipment. As the initial treatment progressed, other medical staff began gathering outside the bay. Word was spreading through the station about the human who was calmly directing her own trauma surgery. While barely conscious from blood loss, Zithara noticed Dr. Kellyan, the Andromedan surgeon, and Dr. Vex, the Rigelian specialist, both watching through the observation window with expressions of disbelief. "Her neural patterns are unlike anything in our medical databases," Zithara murmured to Chen. "How do humans develop this level of pain tolerance?" Chen's response would change everything Zithara thought she knew about human physiology and training. "Doc, you're looking at this all wrong. This isn't about pain tolerance. This is about something else entirely." Mitchell's eyes met Zithara's compound vision, and for a moment, the doctor saw something that made her pause in her work. There was no fear, no desperation, just calm determination and an almost protective instinct toward her team members in the other bays. "Doctor," Mitchell said quietly, "I need to ask you something important about the others." Dr. Zithara paused her surgical work, her forearms holding steady as she looked down at Lieutenant Mitchell. The human's request hung in the air, and something in her tone suggested this wasn't just casual concern for her teammates. "What do you need to know?" Zithara asked, adjusting the biomonitor to ensure Mitchell remained stable during their conversation. "Private Torres was closest to the mine when it detonated. Young kid, first deployment. He's going to blame himself for triggering the ambush." Mitchell's voice remained steady despite the ongoing medical procedures. "He needs to know it wasn't his fault. The Vorthons had been tracking our pattern for days." Zithara exchanged glances with Chen, who nodded grimly. "She's right, Doc. Torres is in Bay 12 and he's been asking for Mitchell every few minutes. Won't let us sedate him." The doctor's antennae twitched with curiosity. In all her years of treating various species, she had never encountered patients who maintained such detailed awareness of their team's psychological state while undergoing trauma surgery. Most beings became entirely self-focused during medical crises. "I can arrange for you to communicate with him once we stabilize your condition," Zithara offered. "No, you don't understand," Mitchell said, her eyes intense despite the pain medication flowing through her system. "Torres is 19 years old. He joined the Marines to pay for his sister's medical school. If he breaks down now, if he can't function, it destroys everything he's working for." Zithara's surgical instrument slowed as she processed this information. The human wasn't just concerned about her teammates' immediate well-being. She was thinking several steps ahead, considering the long-term psychological and social implications of the current situation. "Doctor," Chen interjected, "maybe I should explain something about Marine training that might help you understand what you're seeing here." Zithara nodded, continuing her work on Mitchell's abdominal wounds while listening. The internal bleeding was more severe than initially assessed, yet Mitchell's vital signs remained remarkably stable. "Human military training isn't just about physical conditioning or tactical skills," Chen began. "For Marines especially, there's something called unit cohesion. They're trained to think of their squad as an extended organism. Individual survival becomes secondary to unit survival. That explains the psychological prioritization," Zithara mused. "But it doesn't account for the extraordinary pain management we're observing." Mitchell's laugh was quiet but genuine. "Doc, with respect, you're still thinking about this wrong. This isn't pain management, then what is it?" Zithara asked, genuinely puzzled. "It's mission focus," Mitchell replied. "The mission right now is keeping my team functional and ready for the next operation. Pain is just information, useful information, but not the priority." Zithara's compound eyes widened. She had studied human psychology extensively, but this level of cognitive control was beyond what the galactic medical literature suggested was possible. She began running additional neural scans, trying to understand the brain activity patterns she was observing. Chen, is this level of performance typical for human special forces? She asked. Mitchell's not special forces. Doc, she's regular Marine Corps. This is standard training for a combat engineer. Chen's tone was matter-of-fact. But Zathara caught the underlying pride in his voice. The implications were staggering. If this was baseline human military performance, what were their elite units capable of? Zathara had heard stories about human special forces operations that seemed impossible, but she had attributed them to exaggeration or propaganda. The neural scans show active suppression of pain receptors, Zathara observed, but also enhanced cognitive function in areas related to tactical planning and team coordination. How is this achieved? Mitchell shifted slightly, allowing Zathara better access to a particularly deep wound. Part of it is training, but part of it is just human nature. We're pack animals, Doc. We evolved in small groups where individual weakness could doom everyone. When the tribe is threatened, individual concerns become background noise. But you're not in immediate danger now, Zathara pointed out. You're in a medical facility, surrounded by advanced treatment equipment and trained personnel. True, Mitchell agreed, but my Marines are here too. Torres, Gonzalez, Kim, and Patel. Until I know they're okay and ready for the next mission, my job isn't done. As if summoned by her words, a commotion erupted from Bay 12. Through the observation window, Zathara could see a young human male trying to get off his biobed despite the protests of the medical staff. His voice carried across the corridor. I need to see Lieutenant Mitchell. I need to tell her what happened. Mitchell's reaction was immediate. Despite being connected to multiple life support systems and in the middle of surgery, she attempted to sit up. That's Torres. He's having a breakdown. You cannot move right now, Zathara said firmly, using 2 arms to gently restrain Mitchell while continuing surgery with her other appendages. Your internal injuries are severe. Then patch me through to him, now. Mitchell's voice carried an unmistakable tone of command that surprised Zathara with its authority. Chen looked at Zathara questioningly. Doc, it might actually help both patients if we allow communication. Zathara hesitated. Protocol dictated maintaining patient isolation during critical procedures. However, the unusual circumstances and the clear distress of both humans suggested a different approach might be necessary. Very well, she decided, activating the inter-bay communication system. You have 5 minutes. Mitchell's voice immediately filled the medical bay, clear and strong despite her condition. Torres, this is Mitchell. Report. The effect on the young Marine was immediate. His struggling ceased and his voice snapped to attention. Ma'am, I'm sorry, Lieutenant. I messed up the sweep pattern. I triggered the ambush. Negative, Marine, Mitchell responded without hesitation. The Vorthons had been tracking our movements for 3 days. They would have hit us regardless of the sweep pattern. Your detection work actually gave us 30 seconds of warning that saved lives. Zathara watched the biomonitors from both bays as Mitchell spoke. Torres's stress indicators dropped dramatically, while Mitchell's remained steady despite her severe injuries. But, Lieutenant, I saw the mine indicator too late. If I had been faster, Torres, Mitchell interrupted, her voice carrying absolute certainty. You performed exactly as trained. The mine was a decoy. The real threat was the sniper nest they'd established in the overlooking ridge. Your warning about the mine made everyone take cover before the real attack began. The young Marine's vital signs stabilized completely. Through the observation window, Zathara could see him settling back onto his biobed, his expression shifting from guilt to determination. What are your orders, ma'am? Torres asked. Recover, follow medical protocols, and prepare for briefing tomorrow at 0800. We have new intelligence about Vorthon tactical patterns that came from today's engagement. Your observations will be critical for the next mission. Understood, Lieutenant. Torres out. As the communication ended, Zathara found herself staring at Mitchell with new understanding. This wasn't just pain tolerance or military discipline. This was something far more profound. The medical bay fell into a focused silence as Zathara completed the most critical repairs to Mitchell's internal injuries. The human's vital signs had actually improved during her conversation with Torres, which defied everything Zathara understood about trauma psychology. Most patients experienced elevated stress when forced to deal with additional concerns during medical treatment. Chen, Zathara said quietly, I need you to explain something to me. Lieutenant Mitchell's neural activity shows patterns I've never encountered in any species. Chen glanced at Mitchell, who gave a slight nod of permission. What kind of patterns, Doc? Her pain receptors are active and functioning normally, Cythera explained, pulling up the neural scan on her display. She's experiencing full sensory input from her injuries. However, her brain is simultaneously processing tactical information, team logistics, and mission planning at enhanced levels. It's as if the pain is being converted into cognitive fuel rather than being suppressed. Mitchell's voice was steady as she responded. Doctor, may I ask about your species' evolutionary background? Cythera paused in her work, surprised by the question. We evolved on Ketra Prime, a world with abundant resources and minimal predation. Our civilization developed through cooperation and shared knowledge rather than conflict. And the other species in the Galactic Alliance? Similar patterns, mostly. The Andromedans evolved in aquatic environments with little competition. The Rigelians developed on a world where intelligence was the primary survival trait. But resources were plentiful. Cythera's antennae twitched as she began to understand where Mitchell was leading. Earth was different, Mitchell continued. Humanity evolved under constant threat. Predators, environmental catastrophes, resource scarcity, tribal warfare. For millions of years, the humans who survived were the ones who could function effectively while hurt. Scared or desperate? Chen nodded, adding, Our military training doesn't create new capabilities. Doc, it just enhances what's already there. Every human has the potential for this kind of performance under stress. Cythera felt a chill run through her exoskeleton. You're saying this level of pain tolerance and cognitive function under trauma is normal for your species? Not just normal, Mitchell replied. Necessary. A human who can't think clearly while injured doesn't survive long enough to reproduce. It's been bred into us over evolutionary time. The implications were staggering. Cythera had always wondered how humanity had managed to become such a dominant force in galactic politics, despite being relative newcomers to spaceflight. Their military successes against technologically superior enemies had seemed impossible, attributed to luck or superior equipment. Now she was beginning to understand that humans brought capabilities that other species simply didn't possess. But this creates a significant medical challenge, Cythera realized. If humans can function normally while severely injured, how do we know when they need immediate treatment? You don't, Chen said bluntly. We've learned to self-triage pretty effectively. But humans will often continue operating well past the point where they should seek medical attention. As if to prove his point, alarms began sounding from Bay 14. Through the observation window, Cythera could see another human Marine, apparently conscious and stable, suddenly collapsing as his biobed's monitoring systems detected massive internal organ failure. That's Patel, Mitchell said, reading the displays from her position. He took shrapnel to the torso but insisted he was fine during transport. Cythera's forearms moved in practiced coordination, delegating Mitchell's ongoing care to Chen while she rushed to assess the new emergency. The human male was unconscious now, his body finally succumbing to injuries he had been successfully managing through willpower alone. How long was he conscious with these injuries? Cythera asked the attending medic as she began emergency procedures. 6 hours, Doc. He was actually helping coordinate evacuations at the landing zone before transport, carried 2 wounded Marines to the medical shuttle. Cythera worked frantically to stabilize Patel's condition. The damage was extensive. Internal bleeding, organ damage, and severe blood loss that should have rendered him unconscious hours ago. Yet somehow he had continued functioning at a high level until his body simply couldn't compensate anymore. This is impossible, she muttered. Initiating emergency transfusions and organ support systems, Doc, came Mitchell's voice over the communication system. Patel's going to need specialized treatment. He has a rare blood type and an allergy to standard galactic pain medications. His medical file should have the details. Even while receiving her own treatment, Mitchell was monitoring and managing her team's medical needs. Cythera quickly accessed Patel's file and found the information exactly as Mitchell had described. The specialized protocols would have taken precious minutes to discover through standard procedures. How did you know about his medical restrictions? Cythera asked. It's my job to know, Mitchell replied simply. A leader who doesn't understand their people's limitations and capabilities isn't a leader. They're a liability. As Cythera worked to stabilize Patel, she found herself constantly amazed by the depth of knowledge Mitchell possessed about her team. Not just tactical information, but personal details, medical histories, psychological profiles, and individual motivations. It was a level of interpersonal awareness that went far beyond military necessity. Chen, is this typical for human military leaders? Zythera asked. For the good ones, yes, he replied. Human military doctrine emphasizes knowing your people as individuals, not just as functional units. It's part of what makes human forces so effective in complex situations. Dr. Kellyan, the Andromedan surgeon, entered the bay with the expression of concern on his aquatic features. Zythera, we're seeing unprecedented medical challenges with these human patients. Their ability to function while severely injured is making it difficult to prioritize treatment. I know, Zythera replied, finally getting Patel's condition stabilized. We need to completely revise our human medical protocols. Actually, Doc, Mitchell interjected, we might be able to help with that. Human military medics have been dealing with these issues for centuries. Chen could probably provide you with field triage methods that would work better than standard galactic protocols. Zythera looked at Chen, who nodded enthusiastically. We've developed assessment techniques specifically for humans who are suppressing their injury responses. I'd be happy to train your staff. But first, Mitchell added, I need to check on Kim and Gonzalez. They haven't reported in, and that's not like them. Zythera checked her patient roster. Both are listed as stable and recovering in bays 9 and 11. With respect, Dr. Stable doesn't tell me what I need to know. Kim has a daughter waiting for him at home, and Gonzalez is 3 weeks away from completing his engineering degree. They need different kinds of support right now. The request wasn't medical. It was personal leadership continuing despite Mitchell's own critical condition. Zythera found herself facing a decision that would change how she approached human medical care forever. Very well, she decided. But you're not moving from that biobed. We'll bring them to you. What happened next would become legendary throughout the Galactic Medical Service, as word spread about the human Marine who conducted a leadership meeting while undergoing trauma surgery, coordinating her team's recovery and planning their next mission, without missing a beat in her own medical treatment. Within minutes, the medical bay had been transformed into something resembling a military command center. Dr. Zythera found herself coordinating with her staff to bring 2 biobeds into Mitchell's treatment area, despite the obvious violation of standard medical protocols. The human's insistence had been so compelling, and the results with Torres and Patel so dramatic, that she was willing to try an unprecedented approach. Corporal Kim was wheeled in first, his left leg heavily bandaged and his arm in a regeneration cast. Despite his injuries, his eyes immediately sought out Mitchell with an expression of relief and respect. Following him came Sergeant Gonzalez, whose head injury had required extensive neural stabilization work. Lieutenant, Kim said, his voice tight with controlled emotion. I heard about the ambush. How bad is the team? Mitchell's response was immediate and precise despite the ongoing medical procedures. All 5 of us made it out. Patel's in critical but stable condition. Torres is recovering well. Gonzalez needs neural monitoring for the next 24 hours. And you're looking at a 6-week recovery timeline for full mobility. Zythera watched in fascination as Mitchell provided each team member with exactly the information they needed to hear. Her assessments were medically accurate, but framed in terms of mission capability and recovery timelines rather than clinical details. Ma'am, Gonzalez said, touching the neural monitoring device attached to his temple, what's our status for the next operation? We're off the rotation for minimum 2 weeks. Mitchell replied without hesitation. Command is rotating in second squad for the next phase. Our job now is recovery, intelligence analysis, and training integration for the new tactics we learned today. Dr. Kellyan, who had been observing from the corner, stepped forward with obvious amazement. Lieutenant Mitchell, you're coordinating mission planning while receiving emergency surgery. This level of multitasking should be neurologically impossible. Mitchell's smile was slight but genuine. Doctor, you're thinking about this as multitasking. It's not. It's all the same task, keeping my Marines ready and effective. Everything else is just details. Chen looked up from his monitoring equipment with the expression that Zythera was beginning to recognize as typical human pride in their species' capabilities. Doc, want to see something really impressive? Lieutenant, tell them about the intelligence you gathered during the ambush. Zythera's antennae twitched with curiosity. You gathered intelligence while under fire? The Vorthans made several tactical errors, Mitchell explained, her voice taking on the tone of a military briefing, despite her position on the surgical table. They revealed their new communication frequencies, demonstrated improved coordination between ground and air units, and showed a modification to their plasma weapon targeting systems. "You observed all this while being shot?" Dr. Kellyan asked incredulously. "Observing enemy capabilities during contact is standard operating procedure," Kim interjected. "Lieutenant Mitchell just happens to be exceptionally good at it." Gonzalez nodded, adding, "She counted their positions, identified their equipment types, and tracked their movement patterns even while calling in medical evacuation for the team." Zathara paused in her surgical work, struck by a sudden realization. "You are functioning as both a combat leader and an intelligence analyst simultaneously, while managing severe physical trauma and coordinating medical triage," Torres added over the communication system from his bay. "She kept us all focused on immediate action priorities instead of panicking about our injuries." The scope of Mitchell's performance was becoming clear to Zathara. This wasn't just pain tolerance or military discipline. It was cognitive enhancement under stress that exceeded anything in galactic medical literature. She began running additional neural scans, trying to understand the brain chemistry that made such performance possible. "The neural activity patterns are extraordinary," she murmured, studying the displays. "Stress hormones that should impair cognitive function are somehow enhancing it instead." "Doc," Chen said, "maybe I should explain something about human biochemistry that might help. When humans are threatened, especially when their group is threatened, their bodies release a cocktail of chemicals that most species would consider toxic." "What kind of chemicals?" Dr. Kellyan asked, his scientific curiosity overriding his bedside manner. "Adrenaline, noradrenaline, cortisol, and about a dozen others," Chen explained. "In most species, these cause panic, reduced cognitive function, and eventual system breakdown. In humans, they create enhanced awareness, improved physical performance, and heightened emotional bonding with team members." Mitchell added, "It's why human military units often perform better under stress than in training environments. The pressure actually makes us more effective, not less." Zathara found herself reconsidering everything she thought she knew about stress physiology. "So human performance improves under adverse conditions?" "Up to a point," Gonzalez said. "Push us too far for too long and we'll break just like anyone else. But our breaking point is usually well beyond what other species can handle. And we recover faster," Kim added. "Human resilience isn't just about taking damage, it's about bouncing back from it." As if to demonstrate this point, Mitchell began providing detailed mission analysis while Zathara worked on her most serious wounds. Her observations about Vorthon tactics were precise and actionable, delivered with the clarity of someone conducting a briefing in perfect conditions, rather than someone undergoing major surgery. "The enemy's new plasma targeting system has a 0.7-second delay between target acquisition and firing," she reported. "That's enough time for evasive action if you know what to look for. The pre-fire energy buildup creates a distinctive electromagnetic signature that our standard equipment can detect." "How did you measure the timing while under fire?" Dr. Kellyan asked. "Counted the delay between when they aimed and when they fired," Mitchell replied matter-of-factly. "Did it for 12 different shots to confirm the pattern." Zathara's surgical instruments trembled slightly as she processed this information. Mitchell had been conducting precise scientific observation while being targeted by enemy weapons, coordinating her team's response, managing her own injuries, and planning their evacuation. The level of cognitive control required was beyond anything Zathara had thought possible. This intelligence could save thousands of lives in future engagements, she realized. "That's the idea," Mitchell said. "Every contact with the enemy is an opportunity to learn something that makes the next engagement more survivable for human forces." Chen smiled with obvious pride. "And this is why human casualties have been dropping steadily, despite facing increasingly advanced enemies. Every Marine, every soldier, every sailor is trained to think like Lieutenant Mitchell. Individual actions contribute to species-wide survival advantages." The conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from the station's command center. Admiral Vorthak's voice filled the medical bay, his tone carrying the gravity of high-level military intelligence. "Lieutenant Mitchell, this is Admiral Vorthak. We've received your preliminary intelligence. Report from Chief Chen. Command needs immediate debriefing on the Vorthon tactical modifications you observed." Mitchell's Response was immediate and professional. Sir, I'm currently undergoing medical treatment, but I'm available for debriefing at your convenience. There was a pause before the Admiral responded. Lieutenant, are you seriously offering to conduct an intelligence briefing while in surgery? If required, sir. The information is time-sensitive for operational planning. Zathara found herself at the center of a moment that would reshape galactic understanding of human capabilities. The question wasn't whether Mitchell could conduct the briefing, it was whether the medical staff could adapt their procedures to accommodate it. Admiral Vorthak materialized as a hologram in the medical bay 15 minutes later, accompanied by his intelligence staff and several other high-ranking officers from different species. Zathara had never seen a military briefing conducted in a surgical suite, but she was learning that human flexibility extended far beyond physical resilience. Lieutenant Mitchell, the Admiral began, his four eyes studying the unusual scene with obvious fascination. I must ask, are you certain you can provide accurate intelligence while receiving medical treatment? Mitchell's response came without hesitation, even as Zathara worked on repairing damaged tissue in her shoulder. Sir, my observations are recorded in my combat log and verified by my team members. The information is reliable regardless of my current medical status. Torres, Kim, and Gonzalez nodded in unison from their biobeds, creating an impromptu intelligence team that amazed the assembled officers. Dr. Kellyan and several other medical staff had gathered to observe what was becoming a historic moment in both military and medical annals. Very well. Proceed with your report, Admiral Vorthak ordered. What followed was the most detailed and precise intelligence briefing Zathara had ever witnessed. Mitchell described Vorthan movements, equipment modifications, communication patterns, and tactical adaptations with scientific accuracy. Her team members provided corroborating details and additional observations, creating a comprehensive picture of enemy capabilities. The Vorthans have modified their plasma rifles with a new targeting computer, Mitchell reported, her voice steady despite the ongoing surgical procedures. The system provides improved accuracy at range, but requires a longer target acquisition time. This creates a tactical vulnerability that can be exploited. How long is the acquisition delay? Asked Colonel Zaris, the Rigelian intelligence officer. 0.7 seconds verified across multiple observations, Gonzalez answered. Consistent across all enemy positions during the engagement. Admiral Vorthak's expression showed growing amazement. You measured enemy weapon cycle times while under direct fire? Standard combat intelligence protocol, sir, Kim replied. Human forces are trained to gather actionable intelligence during all enemy contacts. Zathara found herself dividing her attention between the surgical procedures and the military briefing. The level of detail Mitchell's team provided was extraordinary, covering everything from enemy equipment specifications to individual soldier behavior patterns. They had essentially conducted a comprehensive intelligence operation while fighting for their lives. The enemy communication frequencies have shifted to a new range, Torres added from his bay. We recorded approximately 12 minutes of intercepted transmissions before our equipment was damaged. You maintained signal intelligence collection during combat? This question came from Captain Thiel, a species Zathara didn't recognize. Until our electronics were compromised by plasma fire, yes, sir, Torres confirmed. Standard procedure is to gather all available intelligence until equipment failure or mission termination. Admiral Vorthak looked at his intelligence staff with an expression that suggested he was reconsidering fundamental assumptions about human military capabilities. Lieutenant Mitchell, your team gathered more actionable intelligence in one engagement than most units collect in months of operations. Sir, with respect, this level of intelligence collection is standard for human forces, Mitchell replied. Every contact with the enemy is treated as an intelligence opportunity. Dr. Kellyan stepped forward, his medical scanner showing readings that defied conventional understanding. Admiral, I must report that Lieutenant Mitchell's neural activity during this briefing shows enhanced cognitive function compared to baseline human levels. The stress and injuries appear to be improving her mental performance, not degrading it. Explain, Admiral Vorthak demanded. Zathara found herself in the unusual position of providing medical analysis during a military intelligence briefing. Human stress response biochemistry creates cognitive enhancement under threat conditions. Their brains literally function better when they're in danger. This explains many previously inexplicable human military successes, Colonel Zaris observed. Human forces become more effective as situations become more desperate. Chen nodded, adding, "It's why human units often achieve objectives that seem impossible to other species. When everything goes wrong, we don't break down, we improve." The Admiral's next question changed the entire tone of the briefing. "Lieutenant Mitchell, given what you observed today, what tactical recommendations do you have for future operations against the Vorthons?" Mitchell's response demonstrated strategic thinking that amazed everyone present. Despite her injuries and ongoing medical treatment, she provided a comprehensive analysis of enemy capabilities and specific recommendations for exploiting their weaknesses. "The Vorthans are adapting to human mobility tactics," she began, "but they're overcompensating in ways that create new vulnerabilities. They're positioning their heavy weapons to counter fast movement, which leaves them exposed to coordinated static attacks." "Elaborate," Admiral Vorthak requested, his intelligence staff taking detailed notes. "Sir, they've increased their sensor coverage to detect rapid human advances, but this creates electromagnetic signatures that can be tracked and targeted. Their improved communication systems are more secure but require more power, making their command posts easier to locate through energy emissions." Gonzalez added, "Their new plasma targeting computers are networked for improved coordination. But this creates a single point of failure. Disrupting their network degrades accuracy across multiple units simultaneously." The assembled officers exchanged glances of amazement. Not only were these humans providing detailed tactical analysis while receiving medical treatment, but they were doing so with a level of strategic insight that typically required extensive post-mission analysis by specialized intelligence teams. Furthermore, Mitchell continued, their adaptation to human individual initiative has led them to concentrate command authority in fewer positions. This makes their forces more predictable and creates opportunities for targeted leadership elimination. Captain Thiel leaned forward with obvious interest. "You're suggesting that Vorthon improvements have actually made them more vulnerable to human tactics?" "Yes, sir," Kim replied. "They're trying to fight humans the way they would fight other galactic species. But human warfare is fundamentally different." "How so?" Admiral Vorthak asked. Mitchell's explanation would become required reading in galactic military academies. "Most species fight wars of position and resources, sir. Humans fight wars of adaptation and will. Every engagement teaches us something new, and we modify our tactics faster than the enemy can respond to them. The Vorthons are treating this conflict like a traditional galactic war," Torres added from his bay. "They make tactical improvements, implement them across their forces, then maintain those improvements until the next major revision cycle. Humans adapt constantly, every day, every engagement." Dr. Kellyan's medical scanners were recording unprecedented neural activity patterns as the humans continued their analysis. "Admiral, I'm observing real-time tactical evolution in their thinking. They're not just reporting what happened. They're developing new strategies based on the intelligence they gathered." "That's correct, Doctor," Mitchell confirmed. "Human military doctrine emphasizes continuous tactical evolution. What we learned today will be integrated into training protocols, shared across all human forces, and implemented in next week's operations." Admiral Vorthak's 4 eyes widened with understanding. "You're saying that human forces become more dangerous with every engagement, regardless of whether they win or lose?" "Exactly, sir," Gonzalez replied. "Humans learn from every contact with the enemy. Our failures teach us as much as our successes." The implications were staggering. Zathera realized she was witnessing the explanation for humanity's rapid rise to galactic prominence. Other species fought wars of attrition, trying to wear down their enemies through superior resources or technology. Humans fought wars of evolution, becoming more effective with every battle. This explains why human casualties have decreased over time despite facing increasingly advanced enemies, Colonel Zaris observed. "Your species treats warfare as a learning laboratory." "Sir, it's more than that," Mitchell said, her voice taking on a tone of profound conviction. "Humans don't just learn from warfare, we learn from each other. Every Marine, soldier, sailor, and pilot shares their experiences with the whole force. Individual knowledge becomes species knowledge." Chen nodded, adding, "What Lieutenant Mitchell's team learned today will be taught to every human military unit within 72 hours. Their experience becomes everyone's experience." Admiral Vorthak stood silent for a long moment, processing the full implications of what he was hearing. Finally, he spoke with a tone of deep respect and perhaps a hint of concern. "Lieutenant Mitchell, your briefing has provided more strategic insight than our intelligence division has gathered in months of analysis. However, I must ask, do you realize what you've just revealed about human military capabilities?" Mitchell's response was immediate and confident. "Sir, everything I've told you is standard human military doctrine. There are no secrets here, just differences in how our species approaches conflict. But these differences give humans an enormous advantage over any potential enemy," the Admiral pointed out. "Yes, sir, they do," Mitchell agreed. "That's rather the point." The briefing concluded with Admiral Vorthak formally commending Mitchell and her team for exceptional intelligence gathering under combat conditions. As the holographic figures faded away, Zathara found herself alone with 5 humans who had just redefined her understanding of what their species was capable of. "Now," Mitchell said, settling back onto her biobed as the adrenaline of the briefing began to fade, "I believe Dr. Zathara still has some surgical work to complete." As the medical bay returned to its normal quiet efficiency, Zathara found herself working with hands that trembled slightly from the profound implications of what she had just witnessed. The human capacity for simultaneous high-level performance across multiple domains while severely injured had shattered every assumption she held about biological limitations. "Lieutenant Mitchell," she said softly as she completed the final surgical repairs, "I need to ask you something that may seem unusual for a medical professional." "Go ahead, Doctor," Mitchell replied, her voice showing the first signs of fatigue now that the immediate military requirements had been addressed. "Are you afraid?" Zathara asked. "You've been shot, undergone major surgery, conducted military briefings, and managed your team's psychological well-being, but I haven't detected any fear response in your neural patterns." Mitchell considered the question carefully before responding. "Doctor, fear is information just like pain. It tells you about potential threats and helps you make better decisions. But being controlled by fear is what gets people killed." "But surely you must experience some emotional response to your situation," Dr. Kellyan interjected, his own scientific curiosity overriding medical protocol. "Of course I do," Mitchell said. "I'm concerned about my team's recovery timeline. I'm frustrated that we lost equipment during the ambush. I'm angry that the Vorthons are getting better at targeting human forces. But those emotions serve specific purposes." Chen looked up from his monitoring station with an expression of pride. "Doc, you're seeing something that most non-humans don't understand about our species. Humans don't eliminate emotions during crisis situations, we weaponize them." "Weaponize emotions?" Zathara's antennae twitched with confusion. "Anger makes us more aggressive and focused," Gonzalez explained. "Fear makes us more alert and careful. Protective instincts make us stronger and more determined. Humans learn to use emotions as tactical tools." Torres added from his bay, "The key is not letting emotions control your decisions. We feel everything, but we choose which emotions to act on based on what the situation requires." Zathara began to understand that human emotional control wasn't suppression. It was sophisticated management. They experienced the full range of emotional responses but maintained conscious control over which emotions influenced their behavior. This explains the legendary human berserker rage, Dr. Kellyan observed. Not an uncontrolled emotional breakdown, but a deliberate tactical choice to weaponize fury. Exactly, Kim confirmed. When a human goes berserk, it's usually a calculated decision that the situation requires maximum aggression regardless of personal safety. But how do you maintain rational decision-making while experiencing intense emotions? Zathara asked. Mitchell's answer would revolutionize galactic understanding of human psychology. Doctor, you're assuming that emotions and rationality are opposites. For humans, they're partners. Emotions provide motivation and energy, while rational thinking provides direction and control. Our training doesn't teach us to ignore emotions, Chen added. It teaches us to use them effectively. Fear keeps us alive. Anger gives us strength. Love makes us protective of our teammates. Zathara realized she was documenting a fundamental difference between human psychology and that of other galactic species. Most civilizations had evolved beyond strong emotional responses, viewing them as primitive and counterproductive. Humans had instead learned to harness emotions as cognitive and physical enhancers. This emotional integration explains your species' effectiveness in high-stress situations, she observed. Other species become less capable when emotional stress increases. Humans become more capable. It's why human artists, scientists, and warriors often produce their best work under pressure, Mitchell agreed. Stress doesn't diminish human performance, it refines it. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Dr. Silana, the station's chief psychiatric officer. The elderly Centaurian had been observing the proceedings with growing amazement and concern. Dr. Zithara, she announced, I've been monitoring the psychological evaluations of the human patients, and I'm seeing readings that concern me greatly. What kind of readings? Zithara asked, though she suspected she knew what Silana had discovered. Stress indicators that should represent severe psychological trauma, but combined with cognitive performance that suggests optimal mental health, Silana explained. These humans should be experiencing severe breakdown, yet they're functioning at enhanced levels. Mitchell spoke up from her bio-bed. Dr. Silana, may I suggest that your evaluation criteria might be based on non-human psychological models? What do you mean? Silana asked, her expression showing scientific curiosity mixed with professional confusion. Stress responses that indicate trauma in other species might represent normal operational mode for humans. Gonzalez explained, what you're interpreting as psychological damage might actually be psychological optimization. Chen nodded, adding, human psychology has two basic modes, peacetime normal and crisis enhanced. Most of our greatest achievements happen when we're in crisis mode, but sustained high-stress operation must cause long-term psychological damage. Dr. Silana protested. Only if we don't have adequate recovery periods and social support, Torres replied. Humans are designed for cycles of high-intensity performance followed by rest and social bonding, which is why unit cohesion is so critical, Kim added. Humans process stress and trauma collectively. We share the psychological load across the group. Zithara watched as Mitchell's team demonstrated this principle in real time. Despite their individual injuries and the traumatic events they had experienced, their interaction with each other was visibly reducing their stress indicators. Simply being together and functioning as a unit was providing psychological healing. Remarkable, Dr. Silana murmured, studying her readings. Your stress levels are actually decreasing as you interact with your teammates despite your physical injuries. Humans are pack animals, Doctor, Mitchell explained. Individual trauma is manageable when it's shared with trusted group members. Isolation is what breaks us, not stress. This explains why human military units are so resistant to psychological warfare, Dr. Kellyan observed. You process trauma collectively rather than individually. And why human forces often perform better when they're outnumbered or outgunned, Chen added. Extreme circumstances trigger enhanced group bonding, which improves performance across all domains. Zithara found herself reconsidering every aspect of human medical and psychological care. The protocols developed for other galactic species were not just inadequate for humans, they were potentially harmful. Isolating injured humans from their units could cause more psychological damage than their physical injuries. We need to completely revise our treatment approaches, she realized. Doctor, Mitchell said with a slight smile, I think you're beginning to understand why humans have been so successful in galactic affairs. We don't just survive adversity, we use it to become stronger. As if to prove this point, alerts began sounding throughout the medical station. Another transport was arriving with casualties from a different engagement, and the crew needed immediate medical attention. Zithara prepared to meet new challenges, but now she approached them with an entirely different understanding of human capabilities and needs. 3 months later, the Galactic Medical Station had been transformed. Dr. Zithara stood in what was now called the Human Integrated Care Wing, watching as wounded soldiers from 12 different species received treatment according to revolutionary new protocols developed through studying human physiology and psychology. The changes were profound. Instead of individual isolation rooms, humans were treated in squad bays that maintained unit cohesion during recovery. Medical procedures were conducted with full patient awareness and participation, rather than sedation whenever possible. Most importantly, injured humans were encouraged to continue contributing to mission planning and team coordination throughout their treatment. Doctor, Lieutenant Mitchell called out as she approached Zithara's station. Her recovery had been remarkable even by human standards, and she had returned to full duty weeks ahead of projected timelines. I wanted to thank you for the changes you've implemented. Zithara looked up from her medical files with genuine pleasure. Lieutenant, your team taught us more about medicine than decades of conventional training. We should be thanking you. The new protocols are saving lives across the entire Alliance, Mitchell continued. Human casualties are down 40% since medical teams started working with our natural capabilities instead of against them, and psychological recovery times have decreased even more dramatically, added Dr. Solana, who had become the Alliance's leading expert on human crisis psychology. Understanding that humans process trauma collectively rather than individually has revolutionized our approach to mental health care. Chen approached the group carrying a data pad with obvious excitement. Doc, you need to see the latest reports from the front lines. Human units that receive treatment under the new protocols are returning to duty faster and performing better than ever before. Zithara reviewed the data with amazement. Not only were humans recovering more quickly from injuries, but their post-treatment performance actually exceeded their pre-injury baselines. The concept would have seemed impossible before her encounter with Mitchell's team. How is this possible? She asked. Humans learn from every experience, including medical treatment, Mitchell explained. Each injury teaches us something new about our capabilities and limitations. Recovery isn't just healing, it's evolution. Dr. Kellyan approached with his own set of data, his expression showing scientific wonder mixed with professional respect. The implications extend far beyond medical care. Admiral Vorthak has requested that all Alliance forces adopt modified versions of human tactical doctrine. Modified how? Zithara asked. Teaching other species to view setbacks as learning opportunities rather than failures, Kellyan explained. The human approach to continuous adaptation is being integrated into Alliance military strategy. Torres, now fully recovered and preparing for his next deployment, joined the conversation. Doctor, there's something else you should know. Word about what happened here has spread throughout human military forces. You're being credited with understanding something about us that most humans don't even realize about themselves. What do you mean? Zithara asked. Gonzalez, who had also made a complete recovery, provided the explanation. You figured out that human capabilities aren't just individual traits. They're collective properties that emerge when we're functioning as integrated units. Like the medical protocols you developed don't just treat human patients, Kim added. They treat human teams. That's why the recovery rates are so extraordinary. Patel, whose recovery had been the most dramatic of all, nodded enthusiastically. Doctor, you've proven that humans are more than the sum of our individual parts. When we're connected and functioning together, we become something greater. Zithara felt a deep sense of satisfaction as she looked around the transformed medical wing. The integration of human patients with their units, the emphasis on conscious participation in treatment, and the recognition of emotional responses as cognitive enhancers had created an entirely new approach to medical care. But perhaps the most significant change, she observed, is how other species are beginning to view humanity. Dr. Solana nodded with agreement. The recognition that human stress responses represent enhancement rather than degradation has changed galactic perception of your species completely. Before this, Dr. Kellyan added, many species viewed humans as primitive because of your emotional intensity and stress responses. Now they're beginning to understand that these traits represent evolutionary advantages. Admiral Vorthak's voice filled the medical wing as he materialized via hologram for his weekly briefing. Dr. Zithara, I wanted to personally update you on the strategic implications of your medical discoveries. Please proceed. Admiral, Zithara replied. Human forces implementing your integrated care protocols are achieving unprecedented success rates. More importantly, other Alliance species are adopting modified versions of human tactical flexibility and continuous adaptation strategies. Mitchell smiled with obvious pride. Sir, are you saying that studying human medical responses has improved Alliance military effectiveness overall? Indeed, Lieutenant. Your species' approach to converting adversity into advantage is being integrated into Alliance doctrine across all domains: military, scientific, and diplomatic. Chen looked around at his fellow humans with satisfaction. We've always known we were different, It's gratifying to discover that our differences are strengths, rather than limitations. The most remarkable discovery, Admiral Vorthak continued, is that human psychological resilience appears to be contagious. Mixed units with human components show improved stress tolerance and adaptation rates across all species. Zythera found herself amazed by the implications. You're saying that human psychological traits can enhance the performance of other species? Exactly. Human approaches to emotional integration, collective stress processing, and continuous learning are proving beneficial for all Alliance forces. As the briefing concluded, Zythera reflected on how dramatically her understanding of medicine, psychology, and biology had changed. The humans hadn't just taught her new treatment protocols, they had revealed fundamental principles about the relationship between stress, performance, and adaptation that applied across species. "Lieutenant Mitchell," she said as the group prepared to leave, "when you first arrived here, I thought I was treating individual injuries. I didn't realize I was observing the key to your species' success in the galaxy." Mitchell's response captured the essence of human nature that would reshape galactic civilization. "Doctor, humans don't just survive challenges, we transform them into opportunities. Every setback becomes a setup for something greater. That's not just our approach to medicine or warfare, it's our approach to existence itself." As Zythera watched the humans depart for their next mission, she understood that she had witnessed something far more significant than exceptional medical cases. She had observed the fundamental characteristic that would ultimately make humanity the most influential species in the galaxy: the ability to transform any adversity into evolutionary advantage, any challenge into growth, and any crisis into opportunity for greatness. The wounded had indeed left everyone speechless, but not because of their silence. They had been speechless because of what human silence represented, not the absence of response, but the presence of something far more powerful: the quiet confidence of a species that viewed every challenge as a chance to become stronger, wiser, and more united than before.